I'm Mary Wong, and I'm with Brittany Marshall here, who is a registered social worker, and we're talking about fertility. So I loved it that you reached out, and we're the people that serve women that are going through fertility challenges, but not even just that, like going through the whole transition from trying to conceive to pregnancy to postpartum, and then through perimenopause. And I'll tell you, the gap is closing.
Yes.
With the people that I see.
For sure.
And so I love that you reached out so that we can have a conversation so that we can support women. Okay, guys, super excited to be here. So I'm here with Brittany Marshall, who's a registered social worker and has dedicated her life and career into helping women and couples going through this season of life. And we're talking about the mental health aspect and how you navigate life and the self-judgment that there is going through this, right? So before we went on camera, we're talking about how you have this fertility journey that can be long, lengthy, and arduous. And then the surprise of actually having the baby. And then the doom and gloom that can potentially be there for postpartum, which you do not expect, because it's like, cut me some slack.
Absolutely.
Like, I've done the deed, like I've pulled in like so my body, my mind, my finances. So surely when I get the baby, it's going to be easy peasy.
Yeah.
Right? So I'd love to hear your story and tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm a registered social worker by training. So I've worked for almost 8 years in like family health teams and hospitals and kind of the healthcare system, and then made the leap this past January into private practice for myself full time. I've always had a private practice kind of on the side, but again, being a generalist, and it was really my own experience going through my own infertility journey that really made me realize there is just such a gap. I knew I really needed somebody to talk to when I was going through my own infertility journey. And
so
then
did
also,
you have someone to talk to?
I tried. I did have someone. I found it really hard. I really wanted someone who had that personal lived experience. And so I really tried. I wasn't able to find someone while I was going through the infertility piece, but I did postpartum.
I get triggered by the word infertility, and I think many people do. So personally for me, I call it the fertility journey. I don't call it a infertility journey. Yeah. Does that make sense?
No, I think it's a great reframe, right? Because those words do have power. So absolutely, when I was going through my own fertility journey, that was something that I knew that I needed, but I found that I had to repeat my story so many times. I had to explain the acronyms, and that really took away from that connection with the therapist. And so it was through a lot of those experiences that I was like, whatever our outcome is, this is something that I want to get more training, get more experience in, and kind of specialize in, so that I can be that support for other people that I knew I needed, that I knew I would have really, really benefited from as well. We had male factor infertility, so that was something that we dealt with. So I feel like there's a whole bunch of emotions that was rooted in that piece of it that we had to work through, individually. My husband had to work through as well, and then we had to work through together in couples therapy in terms of just the repercussions, how it changed our relationship, how it changed all of those dynamics as well.
Well, I mean, if you're okay with going through it, like, let's be very direct.
Sure.
Like, what were the true raw feelings around it? Like, when you found out about the male factor, the sperm wasn't as good as you'd like them to be. Then what was your immediate reaction?
At first it was shock. I think I went into it expecting it was a woman's issue and it would be my issue. It would be something very much on my end. So there was definitely a lot of shock, and then it went very quickly to anger. I was very angry at him. I was very, I'd say, judgmental, very accusatory of, you must have done something. You must have taken steroids. You must have done X, Y, and Z to explain why your sperm count is so low and as bad as it was.
When you've had those feelings and you confronted him. Like, how did that impact your relationship?
Yeah, it definitely did. He felt horrible. He, I think, was going through his own kind of grief journey, and he felt really helpless. So I think we were both off. We weren't really communicating. It was like we were speaking a different language, partly because I had so much anger, but I think for him, he had so much shame. He had so much guilt. He felt horrible. And then I think for him, seeing me go through all the appointments, me having all the injections, me having all the procedures, and him feeling like he couldn't really do much to contribute. There wasn't a lot that he could do to kind of change the circumstances, was a really helpless feeling for him.
Well, yeah, and then let's broaden it out. When we think about reproduction, males going through the reproductive journey, it's like men are virile. They want to plant the seed and like create progeny all over the universe, right?
Yeah.
So I cannot imagine being a male with a male factor when the ego is really tied into their sperm status.
For sure, for sure. And I think he is one of those guys who, worked out. He did CrossFit. He was kind of like that macho men's strength kind of mentality, right? And so I think he put this pressure on himself that he was supposed to be the strong one. And so he didn't show a lot of emotion. He still doesn't. That's not really his forte. But he was definitely struggling, but I think also felt that pressure to be strong, quote unquote, for me, to be my rock. And so we had a lot of conversations about what that would look like, and ultimately coming to that decision of us being a team, that we had to work together, that we had to find a way through it. And I think because of the male factor diagnosis, we were able to kind of jump past IUI, jump past everything, and go straight into IVF. So from that standpoint, looking back, although it felt fast, I think it was a little bit of a blessing because it prevented a lot of probably grief and failed cycles and things like that too.
Having gone through the fertility journey as a couple, no matter what the problem is, makes or breaks a couple.
For sure.
So what would your top 3 to 5 tips be that people can walk away and use at home, like now?
Yeah, I think one of them is definitely having open communication, being able to communicate how you're feeling, not being afraid to say that I'm really frustrated right now, I'm really upset, identifying those feelings. And then I think that ties into the second one of being able to create a space where you're able to talk about it, which I think for a lot of people involves needing that third neutral party that would come through a couples therapy. But, sometimes people are able to do it themselves. I think another piece would be focusing on the fact that you are a team, that it's not you against him, it's you guys together against the fertility kind of piece of it. I think another piece too is remembering why you fell in love, remembering those characteristics that yes, you are facing adversity, but there's so much strength, there's so much resiliency that you can tap into. I remember thinking when we were going through it that, if we can make it through this, we're going to be able to make it through so much more, because there's so many transferable skills that you are still learning that you can apply in the future. Another tip that I would say is not having these conversations late at night, not having these conversations when somebody's triggered. We had to kind of schedule time to have these quote unquote meetings that were sometimes at restaurants where we couldn't run away. We couldn't yell and scream because there were people around, right? It kind of forced us to have these conversations and be able to talk it through. I have some clients and they'll do it in the car and they'll lock the car. It might be with their teenagers because then they can't storm off, right? So I think setting these times and spaces where you're able to have these conversations when you're both more regulated, as opposed to when you're really, impulsive, really emotional, really heated, and potentially saying things that you don't mean.
Right. I love that. I would add in though too, that thing is like as a couple, you can't be everything to each other.
Absolutely.
So there has to be other outlets outside of each other.
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So like to me, like my girlfriends, and sometimes people don't tell their girlfriends or family members. So it's like then finding some kind of support group. There's some hesitancy because it's like, oh, sometimes I find these groups and it could be like this negative vortex, which it can be. But I think, if you create boundaries, set boundaries on what you can take and like, find value versus having it suck the life out of you, then it can be invaluable as well.
For sure. I was in a monthly support group with other people that were going through infertility, and there was people that were a lot further along in their journey, that there were times where I was just like, oh my gosh, this is a lot. This is heavy. But at the same time, it was really helpful to know that you're not alone, because it wasn't just something that you were being told, because we know it's 1 in 6, but to actually see it, to talk to these people, to be inspired by the hope and the resiliency, and to also see these people that are out living their lives, that are finding ways to find the meaning, find the connection. Because I think oftentimes when we're going through our own fertility journey, it's all consuming, right? And it takes over everything. We put our lives on hold because we're trying to conceive. And so to be able to see those examples of other people that were able to still experience joy despite being on the fertility journey was also really, really inspiring. And to this day, one of my really good friends is someone that I met in one of those support groups. I was that silly person in the waiting room at the clinic being like, hey, do you want to exchange phone numbers? We're going through this journey together, but we're wired for connection, right? So that's so, so, so important.
So I think you said something key right now. We're wired for connection, but yet the automatic instinct is that you go inside, inward, and then you shut the world out.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
That said, I think, again, we can set boundaries. So it's like you're invited to a whole whack of baby showers.
Yes.
You might not go.
Yes.
And that's okay. And you give your permission not to go.
Yeah.
But create a different space. Like, so for example, when my sister-in-law had her fertility journey, which was like 8 months and mine was 6 years. When she had her baby shower, I said, listen, I am happy for you.
Yeah.
But it's probably not the best place for me to be.
Right.
And let's do something separate.
Exactly.
And she was relieved because she would have, like, it was her day. So why would I want to be like a dampening, like spirit for her when she'll feel bad for me when it's supposed to be her celebratory time.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So
and I think that's a really good example where you're protecting your own peace, right? You're doing something that you need to do for you to protect your heart, right? But it doesn't necessarily mean saying no. It was kind of saying no, but it was also opening the door to something else of, hey, I still want to connect. I still want to celebrate you. I'm still happy for you, because those emotions can coexist. I can be happy for my sister-in-law, but I can be really sad for myself. I can be dreading that. I can be wishing that was me, right? It's normal to feel jealousy, to have those emotions, but to find a way to cope through those pieces of it too.
Right. And then let's just actually say it out loud as well. Sometimes you're not happy for other people.
Right. Yeah.
And that's totally okay too.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And we can name it. Not necessarily with that person individually.
Right.
But with ourselves, just being honest.
Yes.
And, you said something about like witnessing other people's joy.
Yeah.
One thing I don't like hearing is like, oh, I need to be happy. It's like, well, no, we have to just be honest and honor our feelings.
Absolutely.
And then how do you speak to that when people say that to you? It's like, oh, I should be happy, or I feel stressed about being stressed, or I shouldn't be stressed.
Yes. Should is one of those words that we want to remove from our vocabulary because it's a cognitive distortion, but it also just implies guilt, right? There's always going to be this feeling not good enough, right? Because you didn't perform, you didn't achieve, you didn't do what you were supposed to do. So I think replacing that with a could be helpful, but it's also about recognizing that we're going to feel this whole wave of emotions, and there's no right or wrong. You talked about naming it. So naming it to tame it, right? You have to feel it to heal it. I'm always telling my clients those pieces of it, that unfortunately we can't just hit the fast forward button as much as we want to. It's not a light switch. We can't just switch those emotions kind of off and on. We have to really allow space and give ourselves permission to feel all of those emotions and to heal it. And some of those are really hard and they are really, really heavy. And it's also that compassion piece of giving ourselves grace, that if we can work through those pieces, that is going to make it easier. That is what's going to make life a lot more manageable.
So if you don't mind me adding in, so in the Chinese medicine perspective, and we recognize that we have all these different kinds of emotions, some of which are uncomfortable and some things that we don't even want to feel, but it is part of the human condition, right? So there's joy, of course we want all that, but there's also the grief, the worries, the fears, the sadness, the frustrations, the anger, and these are all just human emotions. And in Chinese medicine, we say when we lock it up or we don't give ourselves permission to feel those feels, all it does is it gets internalized into our cells. And in Chinese medicine, we say our issues are in our tissues, meaning that that emotional congestion gets locked in and it can impact our physiology.
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes I use the analogy of like the beach ball, right? And it's like we're trying to suppress, we're trying to push our emotions down. The harder that we push, that beach ball comes up, and usually it comes up right smacking
your face. Yeah, that's a great analogy. I love that.
Right? Or the volcano, right? And the volcano erupts, and more often than not, wrong time, wrong place.
Yes.
Right?
Yes,
but if we can deal with it in these smaller, almost like micro doses where it's a lot more manageable, right? By giving ourselves permission to feel. Sometimes I encourage my clients to kind of schedule that worry time, schedule the doom and gloom time. Give yourself permission to sit there, to yell, to cry, to scream, to feel sorry for yourself, to hate your life, to hate your partner, right? I had to do that. But I would set a timer, and then I would write it down, and when the timer went off, I would rip up the pieces of paper, I would stomp on it, I would throw it in the garbage. Like I really needed something kind of symbolically.
So it's like cleansing.
Exactly.
Rather than keeping it inward, right?
Exactly.
And I love that piece. And then I'm going to add in, of course, because as a practitioner, that works with the human body and the mind and the spirit. So there's talk therapy, which I find invaluable, but simultaneously I mentioned that things get locked into our body, so we need a physical exhalation, so to speak, right? So that's why meditation, breath work, it's all great, yoga movements, right? But in terms of actually seeking other people, practitioners, so acupuncture, osteopathy, like body works is a great way to release some of that emotional energy that has been constrained.
Absolutely.
Right? So I personally don't think that we should just do one thing,
right,
but do multiple things to hit all the levels of the human being.
Absolutely.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And finding ways to release it, right? That's going to look different for everybody, but ultimately we need to find those ways that work. And often it is that combination of like that mind and that body kind of approach, because we know they're so interconnected.
So I didn't tell you a little bit about who I am. So I'm a practitioner of traditional Chinese medicine for over 30 years. And I've walked with women trying to conceive, going through the fertility journey, getting through their pregnancy, postpartum, and then perimenopause, menopause, because that's all part of the whole lifespan.
Yes.
And going through that, myself included, I found it invaluable to get help through outsiders, right? Meaning paid help, because we're no longer in this hunter-gatherer society where the women will just go off and they help each other, right? And the elders help the little ones, and then the teenagers would help the like wee ones, right? Now we're all just isolated units. Before we went on, you talked about how you had also used acupuncture. So I would love to hear your experience. Did you find it relaxing?
Yeah. So it's interesting. Prior to all this, I did have a bit of like a needle phobia. So I actually had like the vasovagal response. So I would like pass out. My blood pressure would drop. And I remember when I had never done acupuncture before, I had only done acupressure because, again, I was terrified of needles. And I remember when they said that we would need IVF, I broke down and I was like, I am not strong enough to do IVF. I could not handle the needles. I gave myself one injection and almost did it the wrong way. So that was something I definitely had to work through. But I found that, the needles were, because they're so small and they weren't going in deep, there was a bit of, the apprehension initially. But I think because I had been going weekly for so long preparing for the retrieval, it was something that I actually did look forward to, that I did really enjoy. And I noticed the difference when I would walk out of the room, that I just felt lighter. I felt more relaxed. I also felt, cognitively, emotionally, like I was doing something to contribute to my fertility journey in a positive way. So I think it helped to give me control of that piece. But I think it physically, I could feel the difference. And then, like we were saying, I did it kind of leading up. My husband also did it as well. And then as well for the transfers. And even throughout the pregnancy, I was, continuing to do it as well. So I had a really positive experience once I was able to relax my body and allow the needles and those pieces to come through.
Yeah, I wish that we could change it and not call them needles,
Yeah.
just because the word is triggering for
Absolutely.
a lot of people. But what I find, people become transformed. They look forward to the sessions and they can feel the level of relaxation.
Yes.
Some people describe it as floating. Or that, when you get so tense, it's like, I don't even know how to relax.
Yes.
And I call it cheating. It's like you put the little needle in and all of a sudden, whew, the endorphins kick in.
Yes.
Your sympathetic nervous system relaxes so that you can rest, digest, reproduce.
Yes, absolutely.
And like have joy.
Yes. And I've never been a napper, but I would nap. Like there were times where the acupuncturist would leave and I would drift off. I would fall asleep. And that whole experience, the whole, the aroma, the sound, like everything it does, it just is such a good nervous system kind of reset, really.
Yes. Oh, thank you. I love that. I did not pay you to do this.
No. But it's funny because the whole IVF journey, like the number of needles, like I don't even know how many needles it was, but even the acupuncture needles, I have a petri dish that they used for the transfer, and I have one of the acupuncture needles that I keep, and I have it in my little memory box with all the little things that I've saved from every part of our journey.
Oh my gosh, I have never heard of that. Let's look at the go-getter women. Mm-hmm. In this journey. You think when you're successful, you work hard, you basically achieve what you want.
Yeah.
And you and I know it totally does not work when it comes to fertility. So how does that make that woman feel? Yeah. And what can she do about it? What are your couple of tips that you can provide?
Yeah, and I think that's a huge piece of it. And we were talking before too about, so many of the patients I work with are very type A, very perfectionistic, have these goals. And you're absolutely right that we're taught if you work hard, if you study hard, if you are enough of a go-getter, you will achieve whatever you want in life. And almost with fertility, sometimes it almost backfires.
I'm not going to say sometimes.
Most of the time. Right. And so it's so ironic, and it's such a paradox that can take a while to kind of get to that point of even just accepting some of those pieces of it. So I think what I would say to a woman who is going through it is rest can actually be productive. Rest can be healing. Rest can be transformative. And sometimes taking that pressure off, taking that beach ball, that weight that we talked about, and releasing some of that can be helpful. And then finding a way to find pleasure, to find meaning, to find purpose outside of your fertility journey is something that is really, really important, because so many of us, myself included, we put life on hold. And I think that that's really, really challenging, because for myself especially, it was a recipe for depression, right? I fell into this funk because my sole purpose every day, all that I could think about was trying to get pregnant. And especially when I found out that it was male factor, right? Like that helplessness, that lack of control made it so much more difficult to focus on. So I think what I would tell those high achieving people is that your worth is not measured by that pregnancy test. Your worth is not measured by your fertility journey, that you are enough, you are amazing, you are resilient, and finding a way to really find pleasure, to find meaning of, yes, we are dealing with this fertility piece, which is a huge piece of our life, but also finding those other sources of support, those other hobbies, those other things that we can do to make life beautiful and meaningful while we're on this journey.
This happens a lot. So I'd love your take.
Sure.
I know what I would say, but I want to hear your take. They'll come in, I've had a failed IVF cycle, or I didn't get pregnant this cycle. Should I go on a holiday, or should I go straight back into a cycle because time is of the essence? What do you say to that?
I say take the break, take the vacation, enjoy yourself, right? Don't put your life on hold. Don't miss out on these opportunities, because I think ultimately you'll regret it. And I think too, there's something to be said for just even that emotional aspect of how you're going into a cycle, because, and you know this all too well, right? If we're going into it and we're completely dysregulated, our body is not going to be in that state to be able to conceive, whether it's naturally or not. And oftentimes when we can go on that vacation, when we can take that trip, when we can even, go for dinner, plan that thing to look forward to, that has such a positive impact on our emotional and our mental health that is so, so, so worth it. I have a few patients right now that have taken like the summer off from trying, and they feel so much lighter. They feel like they can actually enjoy life. They've forgotten about the person that they kind of used to be because they were changing while, fertility was just becoming so, so all consuming. So take that trip, enjoy it, and try as much as you can to be fully present. Because if you're going to go, but you're just going to be ruminating and you're just going to be stuck in the should cycle of, oh, I should be trying, I should be prepping, that's not going to be enjoyable. So it might be using like the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 grounding, using meditation, using breath work, using our senses so that we're fully able to be present. And when we get back, we'll deal with all the appointments and all the procedures.
So I want to know what 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 is.
Okay, yes. So that can be a great grounding technique that you can use anywhere at any time to really bring yourself to the present moment, because it focuses on your senses. So basically what you would do is you would say 5 things that you can see, 4 things that you can touch or feel, 3 things that you can hear, 2 that you can smell, and 1 that you can taste. And what happens when we do that is we are forced to come back to the present moment, because those senses are here and now. Those senses are always changing. Even if you forget the order, or you're somewhere where you're like, I don't really taste anything, I don't really smell anything, just focus on what you can see or focus on what you can hear. If you're outside, it's even easier, but that can be a really good technique to just bring you back to the present. So the second you notice the rumination, the second you notice your mind spiraling, oh, okay, label that. Okay, I'm drifting off, right? How can I bring myself back and going back to our senses? Because that's the present moment. And ultimately that's all we have. And oftentimes it's like we're on this teeter-totter between the past and the future. And the past is sometimes regret. It's sometimes the shoulda, woulda, coulda, right? And the future is anxiety. The future is what if. So we're on this teeter-totter between depression, anxiety. But if we can find a way to ground ourselves, if we can find a way to come back to the present moment with our senses, then that can help to give us that control to just be here and now, and then we can build on that.
That's super helpful. And let me just answer this piece then, because one of the things I say, let's not focus as much on the doing, because you're going to be doing lots of things as you go through this journey. And how do we focus on the being? So I love this 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 business. And I will even add in, like, for the type A, myself included, I don't really have the time to sit down, create a room that is beautiful and make a meditation space and then go home for 20 minutes or a half an hour or 30 and an hour, right? I don't. And I love the concept, but in this season of my life, I just don't have that kind of time. So this 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 exercise is your gateway of being, and that is a source of meditation. It's active meditation, being present.
Yes. And that's what I talk to a lot of my clients about, is this concept of like mindful moments, right? Because you're absolutely right. We don't have 15, 20 minutes, an hour to devote to that full like guided meditation practice, but it could be something that we do even while we're at the fertility clinic, waiting for our appointment, right? Waiting for the ultrasound, maybe even during the ultrasound, right?
Yes.
When we're trying to analyze, I remember trying to analyze the text space of like, okay, what's going on, right? But that can be something that you could do. Another thing could be like a modified progressive muscle relaxation. So doing some of the squeezing, taking that deep breath in as you squeeze, and then releasing as you exhale. And working your way from the top of your head to your toes or vice versa. But that can be something that you can do at any point, that you can do subtly, right? When your hands are under the desk at work, or doing your blood work, right? I had to do a lot of things to not focus on what was happening.
Okay, totally unrelated to fertility, but I remember this teacher in grade school. I think this is grade 8. And for some reason, back in the day, we had they would play the national anthem, and we're all standing at attention, and the teacher's hand was always gripped, like every time. And years later, when we ran into her, I don't know how it came up, but what she was doing was she would like squeeze her butt muscles.
Yes.
So she's like getting a little glute workout while she's at attention. So we can like call that part of meditation, right? She's like hyper focused on
there you go.
glute work.
Yeah. And you can do it. That's usually how I end when I teach PMR, I'll end one where I'll say, okay, let's curl our toes. Let's squeeze our buttocks, our stomach, raise our shoulders up, do the fist, like do everything all together as we take the inhale, and then exhale as we let it all out, right? So there's so many different variations.
You just said a word PMR, so you need to explain what that is.
Yes. So PMR is progressive muscle relaxation. So it's a type of mindfulness that I find a lot of my type A clients really like, because for a lot of us, our mind is our worst enemy, right? We're constantly thinking, overthinking, catastrophizing, which is basically a fancy word for expecting the worst case scenario. And so meditations can be something that can really, really help. So progressive muscle relaxation is a type of meditation where instead of just listening to some type of an audio, you're actually doing something with your body, which is progressively tensing and then releasing different muscle groups.
Wow, come to think of it, that's the first type of meditation I learned in university back in the day.
It's often the first time I teach, because it's something that a lot of people, like, they need that practical kind of piece of it, that if they have like benefit to that, then sometimes I'll go into like a loving kindness meditation, a self-compassion meditation, right? Like those pieces of it can be really, really powerful. And just teaching that awareness too. The great thing about the progressive muscle relaxation is oftentimes I don't even realize that I'm sitting like this. I don't even realize where I'm holding tension. But if we notice that even in our day-to-day life, that could be, oh, okay, I need to just kind of lower my shoulders, right? That's a sign that we are getting tense, and how can we purposely throw attention, energy to that muscle group to relax a little bit.
So where do we find you if people want to get a hold of you and talk to you, connect with you?
Yes. So I am on Instagram at Brittany Marshall Counselling. My website is brittanymarshallcounselling.ca. I do in-person sessions in Pickering, and then I do phone and video across Ontario. So I would love to connect with anyone who is interested in learning more, because I'm really passionate about the fertility piece, and then even life after fertility as well.
Yes, because there is life, and that's just the beginning. I always say this is just the beginning. It's like when people come to us at Alive, the first thing I'll say is, I get that you're wanting a baby in your belly. I want you to think beyond that. Yeah. Because once you have the baby, that's just the beginning. Yes. It's a giant journey to get there. I had that myself, but I realize now with the teenagers, like, oh my gosh, this is just part of the rest of my life.
Yes. And it's supporting people at different stages, right? I've had people that are taking a break. I've had other people that are pursuing donors. I've had other people that are in that stage of, single moms by choice, like things like that, right? So whatever your path looks like, it is that journey towards acceptance. And in order to get to that place of acceptance, we have to go through the denial, the shame, the grief, the anger, the bargaining, right? All of those phases of it. And, I was lucky enough for me that IVF worked. I do have 2 kids through it, but I struggled a lot with postpartum depression afterwards, right? And I thought that because I had a hard time getting pregnant, because I had a rough pregnancy with HG, because I had rough births, like that, I'd be caught a break almost with this postpartum piece. But I had other complications that resulted in me not really feeling able to bond or connect, particularly with my first. And so that was a huge, huge curveball. There was this huge part of me that was like, Brittany, this is all you've ever wanted, right? You've wanted to be a mom. You're finally a mom. And now you hate it. You hate yourself. You can't get out of bed. Like you're really, really struggling. What the heck is going on? And so, I ended up having retained placenta, and there was other kind of medical issues too and hormonal pieces of it. But it was hard for me to work through, and it took a full team of specialists to really finally get me to that point where I was able to fully enjoy it. So, pregnancy does not cure infertility. It also does not prevent things like postpartum depression from happening. In fact, I think you're probably more at risk for some of those pieces too.
And then the guilt and shame, because you've already gone through that experience, I find that the level of expectation amplifies.
Yes.
Right? It's like, oh, surely I should feel a certain way because I've had such a challenge. And then you feel guilt and remorse about feeling those emotions.
Yes, absolutely.
Right?
And me being me, and I think a lot of you can probably relate, right? Those type A overachievers, perfectionists, right? Of being my own worst enemy, right? And just literally beating myself up every day of, oh my goodness, what's wrong with me? I'm a failure, feeling a failure as a mom, as a wife, as just a friend, every single aspect of my life, right? And looking back, I wish I was just able to take a moment to really recognize what I had been through, right? Yeah. And to just take some of that pressure off, that I really was doing the best that I could, right? But there was just so much guilt and shame and isolation that went into it. And I think, like we talked about before, I didn't really go to these mom groups. I didn't go to any of these activities until my daughter was a lot older. And so with my second, that was one thing that I shifted right away. And those connections were just so invaluable as well.
So I love that you're saying this, because again, even for postpartum or preparing for postpartum, I think is really important. So having a therapist, doing body work, aligning yourself with, things like let's have a food service or the meal trains, the doulas, like all those things set in place. So that it prevents that overwhelm, the anxiety, the blues. Like, not that you won't have it, but it'll just like lessen the shock of
for sure.
This.
For sure. And going back to the couples piece that we spoke about earlier with the male factor piece, like my husband, he drove me to every single appointment. He was able to, flex his hours and take time off work to do that. He gave me every single injection. He prepared, he mixed all the medications. That was his job, was he kind of had the timers. Like, it helped to give him that sense of control. And once we had the baby, I don't think I did a diaper change the first 2 weeks, right? He was doing those things, and it helped so much to give him, I think, that sense of control and power where he felt like he was contributing. He was making a difference, right?
So he had no choice, because I'm like, you are doing the mixing, you are doing the injections, because I'm doing the thing, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So. But it's a lot of people that I talk to, when I even mention that, they're like, oh, I never thought of that. And me being me, I'm like, there was no way I was stepping myself.
Right. Yeah. Well, and it's a different personality type, because some people is like, I'm not trusting my husband to do this. Like, no way, Jose. Yeah. So it's like whatever you're most comfortable with.
Yes.
But that's
we had a video, and I was trying to do one of the stems, and I had it opened the wrong way, and he's like, Brittany, no, because the needle was gonna go into my thumb. But that's how clueless I was, because I was so terrified that I had never even looked at the thing. I didn't even know, but I was like, I gotta give myself at least one.
Oh my gosh, that's hilarious.
But yeah, the PIO, even the angles, I'm like, no, that was his job. But we made it fun, right? He would do a massage, he would do the heating pad, we would go for a walk, he would play this silly song, he would give me a little chocolate afterwards.
Every time?
Yes, every
Come on.
time.
So PIO is progesterone in oil. So it's an injection by the butt. So I've seen, I actually did a video on this on Fertility Talk, so you can find that on YouTube somewhere. But it was interesting, because I never did one of those shots myself.
Okay.
But to know all the single women, or their partner's not around or something, and they're able to do that, it's just wow, incredible. So I wanted to do that, and I invited an RN who was actually able to do that and for me, and she showed me, and it was actually quite easy. Okay. But I had no clue.
Yes.
And I wish I knew then what I know now.
Yes.
But so that's why I bared my butt, so that other people can learn.
Yeah. Well, I remember I went into the clinic, and they'd put the X's,
the little
on
X and the smiley
because I was
faces.
paranoid that we would mess it up, we'd do it in the wrong spot, something would happen. But it's one of those things that we can obviously look back back and laugh. But at the time it was, yeah, definitely not pleasant.
No. I mean, listen, my kid is 14 and I still remember it like it was yesterday.
Yeah. And I think it's so powerful, right? It changes you. I feel like I'm a different person today because of this experience. I think I parent.
Stronger.
Yes, absolutely. The strength and the resiliency. And, you know, as soon as you walk into my house, there's that cliche photo of my daughter with all the needles in the heart, like, around her. And absolutely. And the second that I start to question my own strength or my own resiliency, I look at that photo. And for me, the needles symbolized so much more than just the needles. But it was that whole kind of journey. And so now being on the other side of it and being able to share my story, and the number of people that have come up to me, or even during the experience, that were like, oh my gosh, I've had that experience too. I was like, I wish I knew this when I was going through it, because I didn't know anybody. I thought that I was totally alone. I thought that, you know, there was something wrong with me, that shame, right? But now the number of people that are sharing their stories, and, you know, if my story can help one person or provide hope, then that's really what makes it worth it. And it's so rewarding now, the work that I've done, and some of the work I've done even with the fertility clinics and meeting people like you, right? That it just opens up the doors to connecting with other just amazing people.
Well, thank you for being here, and I think it's quite enlightening. I love what we've been chatting about, and I've learned some things.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
If you found this helpful, please comment and ask whatever questions you may have, and then we'll answer you. We could do another video for you. Just reach out, and we love to hear from you.
Absolutely.